Welcome back to the Print on Demand cast. In this episode, we talk about the print on demand success pyramid. Let's get into it.
Radical! Welcome to this week's episode of the Print on Demand cast. Each week, join the gnarly Travis and Josiah as they provide insight into the print on demand industry and equip you with the totally tubular tools, advice, and strategies you need to achieve success and hopefully have a few laughs along the way. Now on to this week's Totally Tubular show.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Print on Demand cast. We're talking about the pyramid, success pyramid. It's not a pyramid scheme. Don't get confused. Don't tune out. This is talking about the success pyramid. You've heard of the food pyramid. Well, this is the Print on Demand success pyramid. And joining me for this show once again, Travis Ross, coming at us from Make Your Mark Design or Comedy Club. You don't know what that background. It could be either or. But Travis, happy Monday. We're recording this on a Monday. How was your weekend? Let's chop up the waffle a little bit before we got a lot in this show to get to. We got a lot of topics and things to hit. But quickly, you first. How was your weekend? Anything exciting happening? What's going on?
Not too much. Band played on Friday. It was a good
Nice.
time. And then Saturday played some poker. And I'll tell you what, there were 30 people and you had to buy in and the whole deal. And I ended up winning the whole thing.
My God.
Made like $240 in my pocket. And
Nice.
Yeah. And it's like a series of games that last all year. And so you build up points and then they put a little bit of the buy-in each week for
like
the final
super game, right? Like essentially like
exactly. And so, that last game this last December, I think there was like $6,000 for 18 people and paid out 5 places. So I'm on my way to being included in that game in December. So I'll keep you posted.
Nice. Yeah. Well, we will know. We'll have to find out. I would be terrified. I'm there to play in a game with those kind of stakes. There's a game here that a friend of mine has in Loveland, and it's pretty similar. It's kind of a steady game, and there's like $20 buy-ins, and you can buy in twice, and this whole thing. I wasn't able to make the one last month. I'm going to try and make the one this month, but I don't play enough poker to be as good as I once was. What's that song? It's a country song. Can't think of it right now. But not as good as I once was.
Like a country song.
As I ever was is actually what the name of that song is. So, it could happen. But that's awesome, man. Glad you had a good weekend in the band and poker. My weekend's pretty uneventful. Celebrated my mother-in-law's birthday on Saturday and Sunday. Actually went to lunch after church and went to Denver on Saturday. Got a tattoo consultation on Saturday. I'll be getting a tattoo the week before you and I go to Orlando. So I'll have some fresh ink going into it. I had a fresh tattoo when I went to Long Beach with you last year too. So maybe it's a tradition. But yeah, pretty standard weekend. Nothing too wild, but excited for Orlando. We'll get to that later. Let people know at some other point. But before we go any further, let's go to everyone's favorite segment, the weekly dad joke.
Time for the weekly dad joke.
All right, Travis, what do you have for us today?
Well, I'm a big Apple fanboy. I got a Mac here, I got my iPhone, my whole family does, but found out recently Apple's jumping into the electric car phenomenon.
That makes sense.
But they've been having a few issues. And the first one, they're having problems installing the Windows.
Nice. I like that.
And apparently there's some really picky designers that have taken issue with the overall look of the car because there's no chrome on it at all.
Nice. That's a twofer. That is a twofer. Where else can you go to get 2 dad jokes on one show? The answer is not anything print on demand specific. So here we are giving you 2 dad jokes. That's awesome. So moving right along, we didn't have one last week, but we have one this week, and we're going to go ahead and talk about the point of interest.
Well, howdy, partner. Welcome to the point of interest part of the POD cast. So grab your hat and hold on tight because we got some learning to do.
All right, Travis. This sounds like, from what I read and what you were telling me a little earlier, could this be an end of an era? It seems like it might be. And I know you had a coaching call today, and that's what kind of sparked this idea. So tell us a little bit what this potential end of an era could be when it comes to everyone's favorite platform, or one of them.
Yeah, I had no idea that this had happened, or that that this was going on kind of behind the scenes. And even when I search YouTube, it doesn't seem like very many people are talking about it. So it may not be as big of a deal as what I am assuming it is. But I did find one particular YouTube of somebody talking about it, but like 6 months ago. And
Wow.
so you're like, tell me already, Travis. Anyway,
Keep alluding to it.
Yeah, I'm just going to keep alluding to it. And then, it seems that Etsy is shutting down, or not shutting down stores, but deactivating specific listings for those message card jewelry products that you've seen, like to my daughter, to my mother, to my, mother-in-law, whatever, all of that. And you basically have you have a piece of jewelry, and then the only thing print on demand is the actual card that goes in behind it. And I actually gave two necklaces to my two daughters last Christmas from one of these companies, but it looks like, so companies like Shine On, Gear Bubble, Awkward Styles, they would produce these products, and people would obviously basically they were designing a little square card, and it would go underneath the piece of jewelry, and then someone would open it. It'd be like kind of like a Hallmark card inside the jewelry box. So my guess is, anyway, the guy I was talking to in our coaching call told me that he got an email from Awkward Styles just literally within the last week or two that said they are no longer, they'll fulfill all the orders, but they are saying that Etsy's handmade policy is saying that there's not enough uniqueness, I guess, about the message card. And this is what Awkward Styles is saying. It's their interpretation of the handmade policy. And therefore, while they will still continue to fulfill the products that are sent to them, they have disabled the ability, or they've taken away the ability for you to push your Awkward Style jewelry listings to Etsy. And, they say it's basically it's for your own good. You don't want to get your account shut down or waste a bunch of time doing a bunch of listings that are going to get deactivated because they violate this policy.
Right.
But the YouTuber that I was looking, or kind of I found, was talking about there's a chance that the reason these things are getting deactivated isn't necessarily that it's a bad product or Etsy doesn't like it or whatever, but they were actually in your back end on a listing. You have to create a production partner if you don't do the whole thing yourself. And I think a lot of people were doing potentially like, I made this, and then I had a little help or something like that, as opposed to saying, no, it was somebody else. And here was the production partner, and, they made it with my design input.
Sure.
And so that's an easy way to, get your Etsy listing deactivated, is if you don't fill out those production partner questions correctly. Right. And so his thought was, well, maybe that happened. And, all of a sudden we're seeing, thousands and thousands of these Etsy jewelry, or these jewelry message card things. And it was just too many people were listing them. And it just kind of, they started to look into it. And then they saw all these people that were saying, oh, I made this. And they realized that wasn't the case. So they started deactivating. And then of course, all the alarm bells go off and everybody's running for the hills. So, it's likely some customers complained about, hey, there's all of these things, or, and that's because it's really hard to get Etsy to notice something on their platform, because there's just millions and millions and millions of listings. Yeah. So going forward, if you are listing these, make sure that you're your settings in the back end on your production partner, don't say I made it, change that, tweak that around to make sure that you're, actually giving credit where credit is due, as far as who your production partners are. But I don't know that I would really go gung ho on that particular product anymore at this point. On Etsy, now on Shopify, if you can kind of create the right type of Facebook ad, or if you know how to sell it and you're doing it at the right time, you can make a lot of money with these things. And obviously on Shopify, you control the platform, so do whatever you want. But on Etsy, I guess this is just kind of a word of caution that they have actually deactivated specific listings. I'm assuming that it's because they put I made it, and it's violating their handmade policy because they didn't actually make it. But like I said, Awkward Styles just said, you know what, we don't even want to do it anymore. We're not going to let you connect it to Etsy from now on. Yeah. So I don't know if Shine On and Gear Bubble have done that yet, but Awkward Styles just recently did that. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's wild. At a certain point, I would imagine even for the fulfillment partners, it's just like, it's got to be too much of a headache, because it probably would then result in it being another system or another process for those specific types of listing to stay on Etsy or to be pushed, depending on what kind of parameters Etsy puts on those types of listings, should they continue to allow them to be listed in the first place. So there's a lot of stuff that can happen. So all right, with that being said, let's just move straight into the meat and potatoes, or as we like to say, the nitty-gritty.
Let's get down to the nitty-gritty
of this week's episode, the main event.
Ladies and gentlemen, the main event.
I already mentioned it at the top of the show. We're talking about the print-on-demand success pyramid. And now last week, we talked about goals, how to create goals and how to do it the right way in POD and in life. We did give some life advice. It happens from time to time. But if you want to check that out, you can go check it out in the archives. Episode 176 is where we talk about goal setting. And if you've actually created goals for your pod business, they're likely different than Travis's or mine, but they're also probably pretty similar. There's some there's some overlap, right? I mean, we talked about this last week, but the goal is growth. Everyone wants to grow their business. That's like all of our common space is. We just want this thing to grow. Whatever the motivation is behind that need for growth, it's the same. Growth is growth. So that's why you're here. That's why you're listening. That's why we wanted to start the show, to offer tips, tricks, and tools to help you grow your business. So that's why you're here. That's why you're listening. That's why Travis is going to Long Beach here in a couple of weeks for the Impression Show. I unfortunately won't be able to make that trip because the next weekend we're going to the other side of the United States and going to Orlando. So it was one or the other for me, unfortunately, because I have a full-time job that's not print on demand. Yeah, I know. I'm bummed because I loved Long Beach last year and the breweries that we found and the Ordinary. The old fashioned we had at the Ordinary was great. As was the bartender, very informative there at the Ordinary. But I will miss being there. But I know what's up.
So nothing about the actual show. It was the alcohol that we were able to consume while we were at the shows. That's what really stuck with you from your trip to Long Beach. Is that what I heard you say, or
a 70-30? I would say there's lots of other stuff. Introducing you to Walk Hard was a huge highlight of that trip.
That was a great one.
The dad jokes, getting the dad jokes from everybody on the floor. That was a lot of fun. Yeah, I mean, you and I always have a good time when we travel. So I am looking forward to Orlando that next weekend. But I know that there's going to be some print on demand specific folks that are going to be there at that show, obviously, and even some print on demand cast listeners like Chris Kretz. I did see his post in the Facebook group saying that he was going to be there, having some hotel troubles and or some pieces of advice for those that might be booking it at this late juncture. But he did talk about that as well. So I will be bummed that I've never met Chris in person that I can remember, unless he came to a Rocky Mountain resellers conference back in the day. But I don't think I've ever met him in person, but he's, been a faithful, loyal listener to the show and a great guy. I know he's a great guy. You've talked to a lot about him as well. And for you longtime listeners of the show, we have some Print on Demand Cast family that will be there. Uncle Mike will be there. You haven't heard from him in a while. It's been probably like a year and a half or so since he's shown up. But I mean, maybe. I mean, last time he backed out and he still owes me a beer, Mike. But that, I guess I'm not there to collect this year, so we'll have to go again. Whenever we're in the same place again at a Print on Demand specific.
Wait, you were coming, but now you're not coming. So do you owe him a beer? And so then those 2 beers cancel out?
No, because last time it was
because you have the show and he doesn't.
Last time it was known to the 3 of us in calls leading up to that, because we had some like planning sessions planned out for that event, and then he backed out. I haven't said anything to Mike about being there this time, so it's not like I got his hopes up. And if he says I did, he's a liar. So he still owes me that beer. Damn it, that's what I'm saying. And he will pay up. We'll make good. Maybe we'll all just go to Atlantic City or something, because you're going there for the other impressions. Maybe we'll just all show up. How about that? Let's do it. Okay. Anyway, back to growth, Travis. Tell us a little bit about that derailed quickly, but so we all want growth, man. So yeah, talk a little bit about that. Obviously, what that thing that kind of makes us all similar, thing we have in common.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, like my goals, while they are likely different than yours, because maybe I'm in a different space of my business than you are, and so I have specific goals that are more, appropriate for where I'm at versus where you're at. Maybe you're not where I'm at, or ahead of where I'm at, or whatever. But they're definitely similar, and like you say, they all kind of come back to growth goals. We all want our print on demand business to grow. And so as I was thinking about this, as I was like, just going, what does make growth? And, we talked about goals last week, and, we have a lot of different things you can kind of pick and choose through different episodes that'll help you even come up with those goals. Episode 172, the print on demand success journey, if you will, what stage are you at? And then we talk about different ways to get to the next stage. That's a great episode to check out if you haven't yet. And, but the bottom line is that we all want to move to the next level, whatever that next level is, or further into it, And so as I was thinking about that, I was like, well, what is success for somebody who's selling on, an Amazon, an Etsy, or a Walmart, or whatever? What does success look like? And what are kind of the foundational things that kind of build upon each other as you're going through your print on demand journey? And so, ladies and gentlemen, we give you the print on demand success pyramid.
Nice.
That was nice.
It was.
Okay.
It was good. It was smooth. So this is obviously like specifically for online channels like Etsy, Amazon, Walmart, etc. Now, if you're building a brand on Shopify or like a similar platform, you have your own website, your advertising, advertising would certainly be a part of this pyramid. Right. If you were doing that, would be another kind of tier there. But that said, there's some fundamental ideas in this pyramid that I think applies to anybody doing print on demand in general. So let's get into it. Let's get into it, shall we?
Sure.
Number one is something that obviously is near and dear to all of our hearts, because I think we've talked about it probably in 90% of our episodes, to be honest, and that would be organization. It's the foundation, right? And I know this from experience, and probably touch on this, as we kind of wrap up this main event, kind of some foreshadowing. But if you don't start there, everything else can be completely out of whack. It might be functional, but if you don't have that foundation of organization, you'll know sooner rather than later that it's not there for you. So chat a little bit about organization, Travis. I mean, obviously spreadsheets and SKUs and flat files, it's like your bread and butter, Sure. But let's chat a little bit about that.
I think, you can still build a print on demand business without organization. I mean, I started without it, you started without it, and we built, and we built businesses, and we built, had a lot of sales, had a lot of success. But to your point, we both came back to it eventually. I came back to it a little earlier than you did, and you were kicking yourself that you didn't come back to it as early as I did.
Yeah.
You and your wife, and you can learn about that in Madeline's episode, whatever number that is. And yeah, she talked about it very openly on that episode, how she had an opportunity, she lost her Etsy account and realized, I don't have any of the titles and mockups and all of these other things that I need, the print files to build this again. I have to start from scratch because I don't have any of it, or piece it together from this folder and that folder. And what did I say about, what was my description, or what was the title of this? And it was really, really painful. Now, to her credit, she did that, and she, had a kind of a resurgence in her, in her Etsy. But had she started, with the organization beforehand, it would have been much less painful to kind of restart or get going again. Now, obviously, there were some things that she needed to change, which she did. But still, even that said, having your SKUs, your designs, your descriptions, your everything kind of laid out for all of your products can really, really come in handy, not just if you lose your account, but even if you're like needing to change something on a listing. Well, man, what was that SKU? What did we do? What did we do on the one that was similar to it? What did we do on the 11-ounce mug that we didn't do on the 15? Or did we do the same thing? Or what? I mean, there is so much to it that there's so many things that are beneficial to having that foundation of organization in your business. And it's not just necessarily, SKUs and designs. I mean, it's like your business banking account, your tax exempt license, your sales tax license that allows you to get, things cheaper or with not paying tax. It's all of those little things that if this thing does build and you do want to continue with it, you're going to do it. You're going to have to do it. It's just way easier in the beginning. And because it really is, like I said, you can build this without it, but you can only that building's only going to go so high without a really good foundation. And this is really the foundation of how big or how large or how much success you can actually have. You're limited without a great foundation of organization.
Yeah, for sure. And we talk about this again. We probably touched on it multiple times throughout the course of the life of this show, but specifically episode 10, way back in the day. It seems like we talked about that specifically. I'm sure we're going to maybe do a revised or kind of updated version of that sometime soon. So that, because we're talking about it so much, it's probably good to kind of represent what we think and some ideas and tips around that whole idea. So episode 10 for now, check that out. Episode 68 is the one with Madeline, where she talks about the Etsy woes and do's and don'ts and the necessity for good organization. So the next one in this whole ordeal, the next step would be design, right? Mm-hmm. Bad designs, they don't sell. It's just coming up. I mean, we talked about this with I can't believe I'm blanking his name. We just had him on the show, and he lives on
Andy's Ends.
No, yeah.
No.
Yeah.
You're talking
I can't
about.
Believe I forgot his name. No.
Jay.
Jay. Yes. My gosh, I feel sorry, Jay. But he talked about this a lot about how bad designs won't sell, and ways to maybe look and see how you can judge if your design's good or not good. But let's talk about what is a good design, right? Yeah. One, use good fonts. And by that, I mean no Comic Sans. You understand the negative space, which is the space where it's empty. A lot of times the negative space can mean just as much as what you're actually putting on the shirt. But understanding what that looks like, how to make it look and kind of space it out correctly. And design for a specific color. Not all of them. You look on Amazon and you can see that some people just don't design with a specific color. Mine just think that all the color options is just the best way to do it, and you need to have all the options all the time. And that's not necessarily the case. You can design for a specific color to make it really pop. And that is the design will sell the shirt, not the color options,
Yeah. Yeah. I remember way back at the beginning, we had Michael Essick on, and he's a great designer.
Yeah.
And we did actually talk about a lot about that. He's like, if my design will look best on a brown shirt, that's the only color I'm going to offer it on.
Yep.
Because that's what I'm designing for. And so there's a lot of great tips in that particular
episode 29 is that episode.
Episode 29. I mean, so you don't have to put every single color out there, and we were specifically talking about merch by Amazon at the time, but it goes without saying, and we're just touching on a couple of things, the whole idea with good fonts and, being able to use negative space and, designing for specific colors. And, like every time we do a design, with our designer, we have them do a design that'll go good on light colors and a design that'll go good on dark colors.
Yeah.
And most of the time, or a lot of the time, we don't even use one or the other, so because it looks so much good. So most of the time we'll use the light design or the one that's designed for light colors on like a coffee mug, because that makes a lot of sense, like a white coffee mug. But if we're going to do like t-shirts or apparel or whatever, a lot of times we won't use that light because we don't want to exhaust the customer with 70 different choices of color or whatever, or not 70, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
So
7,
we might just say
that's the equivalent. I mean, honestly, the analysis paralysis is a thing. You don't want your customer to be overwhelmed with like, oh my God, I like this, or which color. There's 11 options. There's fuchsia. There's eggshell. It's too much.
Right. So we might just put it on a black, a navy, and maybe like a dark heather or something, and just have 3 options because it looks the best on those. And we might not put it on the navy or it just totally depends on the design. And so that's super important, and that goes with all your designs, even like stuff you're going to have laser engraved or UV'd. I mean, consider what you're actually putting it on. And, consider your font choice, consider your negative space. It's so sad when I go on to Etsy and I'm, looking up different products and, I'll use like a research tool like Everbee or something. And I'll say, and I'll see these different things that are selling, and you can tell, oh yeah, I know why that's selling well. It's because it's freaking good. And we'll get into mockups later, but the mockups are good and all of that. I get it. But then, you scroll down to like, oh, this hasn't sold very much. And then you look at the design, you're like, oh, I get it. It's just not, it's not pleasing. And so your design to me, every single one of these stages, it was like, what's more important than this? And, so design to me is really the most important thing to actually selling your products. If you don't have good designs, it doesn't matter how good your SEO is or how great your mockups are. The design is that's the next step. You got your organization, getting it all figured out. That's your foundation. But then the next step really is good or even great design.
Yeah. The next one on the pyramid is on-page SEO. And for those that don't know what SEO is, it just stands for search engine optimization. And so basically it's the text when you go to an Amazon listing, and all the text you see there is search engine searchable by the Amazon search engine or Google basically. And so it includes titles, tags, descriptions, all of it. And you want to make sure that you are optimizing the keywords for your listing to be found by the people who you're trying to target to buy it. If it's a nurse, themed design, then targeting towards nurses. What are those keywords that you need to have to really make sure that that appears in front of the people that you're hoping will buy it or buy it as a gift for a loved one that's in that particular industry? So, I mean, Travis, SEO is one of those things that it's like, it sounds simple, but it can be really nuanced if people don't understand, like, oh yeah, I get it. Search engine optimization, it's fine, right keywords. But there is a nuance to it that you can really understand. And when you do understand it and understand the tools to help you kind of discover the right ones, it can definitely set apart your listing and helps kind of spur on that growth.
Yeah. There are different SEO kind of best practices for each of these different channels. So Etsy sees SEO or sees what you enter into your title tags, descriptions, etc., differently than maybe an Amazon or a Walmart might, or even a Google. But they're all search engines. They have their own algorithm and they rank things specific to their algorithm or their channel. But in the end, they all are search engines, and there are certain things of more weight when they're determining who gets listed first on that search page. And that's really what we're talking about. How do we get listed higher on that search page? That to me is the next step. It's the next kind of part of the pyramid that, obviously your design is super important, but if you don't have the good enough SEO to show up in the searches, no one will even find your listings in the first place. So these could go back and forth. Is SEO more important than good design? I still think design is. That's why I put it there. But SEO is very important, because if you don't have good on-page SEO, you won't be able to be found in the search engines. And like I said, there are specific things you can do for like an Etsy account or an Etsy SEO optimized listing. That's what an Everbee or an eRank is really good for. It can help you discover new words, new phrases even, for your listing. I'll just give you one tip right off the, don't ever in your tags do a single word. Don't, you have a t-shirt design or whatever, don't put t-shirt in your tag, because that doesn't tell, Etsy anything.
Yeah.
Put working nurse t-shirt, or, nurse mom t-shirt, or something that's actually going to describe it. And maybe you don't even need to use t-shirt because you used it in your title. Right. So there's different things like that each individual channel is going to allow you to do or be more successful with. So, for example, Etsy gives you 13 tags. Amazon, it's not a number of tags, it's a number of characters that you can add. So everybody's a little different. And, we'll get into some SEO tips at some point. When we were looking at this list, we realized we've never done an episode specifically on SEO in print on demand. And that's on us. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. I think the closest we might have at this point would be episode 130, top 2 tips to make your listings stand out on Etsy, Amazon, or Shopify. So we do cover some SEO in that. But all that to say, we are due to have kind of a deep dive into this conversation. Spoiler alert, right, Travis? Do you have a spoiler alert for the people about SEO?
Yeah, the spoiler alert on episode 130, those top 2 tips, it's SEO and mockups. So that's what we talk a lot. And you know what? Now that I'm doing this
whole segue.
It really is. I'm just saying, but now that we're doing this pyramid thing, I'm like, oh, are those really the top 2? Oh, well, organization and design are actually the bottom 2.
That's true.
See what I did
Look
there?
At that. Yeah, that's clever.
That was awesome.
I recovered.
You did. You brought it back. You landed the plane in splendid fashion. All right, number 4, mockups. We talked about just a second ago, but listen, once you've got them, once you have your listing, mockups are incredibly important. And again, this is something that we've probably talked about and touched on multiple times through the life of the show. But you want to make sure that your mockups are engaging, accurate to what the customer will be buying, but you want something more than just the, t-shirt, flat t-shirt mock-up with the design and the white space. And those are fine, right? They'll communicate what the customer is buying, but is it relatable? Lifestyle mock-ups to a consumer as they're looking, and you have someone that's grilling and has a 4th of July shirt on, it's like, well, yeah, I grill. I can relate to that. It's another thing that kind of draws them in and helps just up the quality of your listing, especially if you're trying to do a brand or kind of an aesthetic in general. It's good to have different mock-ups that can help communicate that to your buyer.
Yeah. I mean, the reason this is like the 4th tier up is because if you don't have SEO, on-page SEO right, they'll never find your page. But once they're actually on your page, it's not the SEO that's going to sell them. It's the mock-ups. That's the thing. That is the number one, aside from the design itself. But of course, the design is in the mock-up. But the mock-ups are the number one thing that is going to influence your potential customer to make a buying decision. That's so important. Those mock-ups are so important. And to your point, it's okay to have a flat lay t-shirt, but also have that guy grilling for the 4th of July shirt or whatever, some type of a lifestyle mock-up that the person can identify with that mock-up or that person in that mock-up and go, yep, that's like me. Or I want to be like that person. And these are psychological things that will influence a buying. They'll influence a buying decision more so than you realize. And so it's very important. So mock-ups to me, once they're on your page, they are the most important thing. So a couple of little tips, I guess, for mock-ups I want to let you know about. So Etsy allows you to, if you have your first mock-up, you can actually zoom in or zoom out or whatever. You can actually make it what it's going to look like on the thumbnail. So when they do find you in the SEO, they're going to see that first. And so I recommend, if you have a lifestyle mock-up as your first mock-up on an Etsy product, to zoom it in as far as you can so they can see the design. Don't worry about the face of the person or whatever else. Make it sure that they can see the design in the thumbnail, because when they actually click on the listing and they come to your page, they'll see the entire, it zooms it back out, if you will, and they'll see the entire mock-up. And so you're not losing anything, but on the search page, you're gaining the ability for them to see your design. So that's just a little trick on Etsy. Unfortunately, on Amazon, they make you put that design on a white background. They do actually say they want models in the first picture, but they don't want to see the face, and they want it on a white background. So again, it's to your advantage if you're selling on Amazon or Walmart to get that design as front and center as you possibly can. But you just don't have as many, you don't have as many kind of tricks up your sleeve like that. Etsy allows you to do really, really cool mock-ups, and they can also be your thumbnails, whereas Amazon just makes you do that white background.
Right. Yep. And I mean, there's lots of good places you can get your mock-ups too. We talk about that, pretty frequently. I know Placeit, for example, is a great one that you can go and use to generate those mockups, even the ones that are just the plain background mockups, and they have PNGs. It's a great tool. But there's tons of them out there that you can use to generate those mockups for you. So you don't have to be a graphic designer to make it work, or you don't have to hire friends to go out and grill to take pictures of. I mean, all of that stuff is readily available for you. As well. So we have an entire episode on that as well, episode 154, all about mockups, to help you kind of guide you, as it were, to find which ones and which tools will work best for you. The next one on the pyramid is print partners. It's important, very important, because print partners are different and margins might be different. You might make more profit using this print partner versus this print partner, or they have more unique products that you can sell to help you stand out. Again, I've talked about this. When you are looking at print partners, you want to make sure, just as much as they're making sure that you're a good fit for them, you want to make sure that they're a good fit for you. You want to get your samples. You want to get your hands on what they're making and producing for you, so that you can speak intelligently about it. And it's one of those things where I think people feel like they might be in some kind of like covenantal contract with a print partner, and it's like a marriage thing, like till death do you part. Like until my business burns down, I will use Printful. It's like, listen, that's not necessarily the case. You can use more than one, which is a question I know you get all the time, Travis. Like, can I use more?
Yeah.
Is it okay? Is it cheating on my other print partner if I use this other person here?
Yeah, and I think one of the main reasons they ask that is it's like, it's more of a can I, and then how do I,
Yeah.
and it kind of goes back to the organization, if you're organized, heck yeah, you can do it. It's pretty easy to actually pick and choose. I know people that have multiple print partners, like 5, 6, 7 print partners. And it's because not everybody prints on the same thing, or maybe they have better margins on their mugs here, but they have better margins on their shirts here. And then that neither one of those two do a laser thing, and they do that, and, or whatever. There's a lot that, first of all, there's a lot of print partners that you probably never even heard of.
Yeah.
And, it would actually be really smart of you to potentially look into some of these other options. Yes, that might mean that if somebody, in that previous example, if someone buys a mug and a t-shirt, that they're going to be sent in separate things and you're paying double shipping. But what percentage of your orders actually are multiple orders? That's a good question.
Right.
I would say very small percentage are. And if I only have 2 or 3, there's also a good percentage that those orders with 2 things are either the same item or the same item that both of those print partners will fulfill for me. So it doesn't really matter to me. I'm still paying one shipping price.
Right.
But I get the question. I get like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this. I just want to, again, it's not going to kill your margins. It's actually going to make you more unique in the marketplace, because you're going to have new or different types of products. And it also allows you to, I would also say, when you're actually, selling a decent amount, it makes sense to go to these print partners and say, hey, I'm selling a lot more now. Do you have better rates? How can I get a better rate? I know Printful and Printify have like a pro thing where you can get, and you get discounts if you get to certain, benchmarks. Guten has for me, but it makes sense to kind of keep your eye on that as you continue to grow your business.
Yep. And the last one that we have here for you, the tippy top, terrible Macho Man impression, tools and resources. Again, this isn't necessarily mission critical, but they're nice. They're helpful. They're things that you use to kind of alleviate some pressure, or some things that you need done, or help you find keywords. Tons of tools. We have a resource page that has some suggestions. And we talked about the tools you can use on episode 175. When we talked about lowering your tax burden. And at the end of it, we talked about online tools that you can try out and subscribe to, and kind of detail what they are, what they do. So be sure to check that out. Again, this isn't something that's mission critical. And if you get hung up on this particular piece without the other ones, you can stagnate and then just be doing nothing, right? And that's an issue that I know, Travis, you want to talk about here as we kind of wrap up this main event. Even before we started recording, you're like, hey, I have something to say when we wrap this thing up. And I said, listen, man, you have the floor. So talk to us. What's the thing that you wanted to kind of highlight or illustrate, as it were, as we wind this thing down?
Sure. Man, you really built that up. I love it though, because I do think it's super important. It's super important to talk about. And so in episode 172, I mentioned this earlier. In episode 172, we talked about the print on demand success journey. Go take a listen to that. See where you are on that journey, at like what stage you're at. And then we also talk about ways to move to the next stage, and so the 4 are the curious, the rookies, the seasoned, and the thriving. And so as you listen to that, you can kind of put yourself in the shoes of those different people and the stage they're in, and you can kind of identify where you're at. And then there's some tools, again, not tools, but tips that you can use to make your goals, that'll help you get to that next stage. But there are many of our pod pals in the curious stage. of that journey. And I really, as I was putting this pyramid together, I was so aware of the fact that a lot of the reasoning behind these people being in that stage of the curious, and they haven't really started much, they haven't really done much, it's because they flipped this freaking pyramid upside down.
Right.
And they're so concerned about, well, which tool do I need to do SEO, and which mockup thing do I need, generator should I be using to get the best mockups, and what print partner, oh my gosh, what print partner am I going to use? And while those things are important, those things are they're at the tip of the pyramid for a reason,
right?
Because they're not that important in actually having success. You don't have to place it. You don't have to, you do have to choose a print partner, but you know what? If you follow this pyramid and you have your organization down, you can switch it later.
Yeah. You
can add another print partner later. It doesn't matter so much. What podcast am I listening to? Which one am I going to, which research tool am I going to use? There's all these different questions that are so far up at the top of the pyramid that they don't make a lot of difference in the end. The bottom line is that you need to get started, and what does that mean? Well, it means, we talked about this too, it means getting your business license, getting your checking account, opening your Etsy account or whatever, making a plan, making those goals. Go listen to episode 172. Then go listen to our episode last week that we talked about goals, episode 176, and go, okay, I'm taking this and I'm taking this and I'm putting it together and I'm going to make some freaking progress in this business. I'm not just going to continue to spin my wheels. I'm going to make some decisions even. And you know what? Those decisions can be changed. It's totally okay. Right. But if you don't ever get started, you can't change anything because there's nothing to change. And there's no success, So this is the success pyramid. So if you want to have success, this is how you do it.
Right. Yeah.
You don't worry about the stuff at the top. When you're starting, you start with what's at the bottom and you build from that. And so, as you can tell, I'm pretty passionate about that. And that was the thing I really wanted to say. Thank you so much. Don't flip this pyramid upside down. That's all I'll say at the end.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Right. It's a success pyramid to your point. And if you flip it upside down, it's the inverse of success. So it makes a lot of sense. You want to start with it the right way. Right. So yeah, that's awesome. So that's kind of the end of this week's main event. Anything else you want to say before we kind of put a bow on this episode and ride off into the sunset, even though the sun's not out?
No, I think we're good. I think, I just said it, do something, that there's your path to success, or at least to starting. It's episode 172. Take those, listen to episode 176, get some goals, and then follow this pyramid. And I really do think you'll see some success.
Yeah. The other thing you can do if you want to see success is go to printondemancast.com and subscribe to the POD VIP list. You will get an email every week that has tips and tricks and some further insight into the print-on-demand industry and some stuff that would help you and the tools that you would need to continue in your successful journey. So be sure to do that. Again, printondemancast.com is where you can go to sign up for that. But until then, folks, thank you again for downloading, pressing play, subscribing, however you got here to be listening to us. Thank you guys so much for coming back each and every week. And we look forward to being back with you again to bring you more tips, tricks, tools, and dad jokes for the print-on-demand industry. So until then, for Travis, I'm Josiah, and we'll see you right here on the Print on Demand cast.
See ya.
Hey, babe. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Print on Demand cast. We hope you enjoyed the Totally Tubular Show. If you got a question or a suggestion for the show, send Travis and Josiah an email at info@printondemandcast.com. Want to be wicked nice? Take a minute to rate and review the show on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe now so you don't miss next week's episode. See you next time, for sure.